When we approach healing, there are two avenues that are used most of the time. There's a lot of doing shadow work, coaching, really working through what your stumbling blocks are, and that is, and what's holding you back, which is one avenue and method. And the second avenue is to come to the surface with, like, just uniting the body exactly where it is and beginning to build the muscle of calm. So even though you're not there, you begin to build that muscle. So the method, I mean, obviously both of them are important, but I feel like this one isn't done enough, the second method. When we're working on wanting to enter a positive future, which is a positive presence, right? It starts with being completely present and being completely comfortable with yourself wherever you are. And that really kind of, both methods kind of meet halfway. So part of it is doing the work which holds you back from being present. But then if we don't do the work of really building the muscle, like it's like lifting weights, then it's like spending a lot of time talking about why we're not there if we just could take the opportunity and the time to sit with ourselves rather than talk about it and align. So a really great way to tap into that is when we're trying to like discover how to sit with ourselves and build that muscle, is by paying attention to your response time when something happens. So this could be positive or negative. What is your reaction? How do you react? Now, there are a couple layers to it, and for a lot of us, we don't take the time to kind of get to know these pieces. It just happens, and then sometimes we're like, I'm not even sure why I do this or how I do it. So just getting to know the first layer, I would say, is noticing if you are somebody, when something happens, if you go inward or you go outward, right? So just think of an incident and just think what happens. Do you retract into yourself, right? So one of the ways that would be like an indication of that is you'd kind of breathe deep, like inhale and swallow. That's one way of like gulping an emotion, and that's kind of one of the indications of emotions becoming physical. Clenching your teeth, finding tightness in your chest and your throat, creating fists, right? Just really tightening up within. That's one way that we react. And it could be one of those things. It could be slight, or it could be an entire body paralyzing itself. So that's one. The other way is going outward. It is, the eyes kind of widen, the jaw drops, right? So it's almost the opposite, right? So instead of muscles tightening, it's muscles loosening. And then we come outward. So that would be yelling, feeling out of control, right? So the inward would be more paralyzing. The outward would be more almost like a tornado. It starts, there's a lot of movement, right? So one spectrum is no movement or the least amount of movement, and the other side of the spectrum is almost like the most movement. And one of these indications And again, we also, in our life, both of them can be possible. It could be that in different scenarios, you do different things. So, simple example, the kids went off to camp a couple weeks ago, and I found myself spinning, right? And when I start spinning, I'm like, I have to take care of myself. And I start making long lists, but what keeps happening is I keep spinning, as in I feel almost like I'm finding comfort in the chaos. And even though I'm saying I'm going to get help for it, I'm going to book an appointment, I'm going to get a cleaning lady, I'm going to do some self-care, what ends up happening is I'm stacking on the movement. And what happens when I start stacking on the movement, it's like I keep feeling like it's getting worse. And then within what I noticed in my own sensation was I was extremely fidgety. I couldn't sit still. And it happens to all of us. And that happens when there's so much movement and there's so much overload that we're not sure how to come back down to ourselves. Another really great indication of this, especially for women, is noticing where you are in your cycle. So noticing where I was in my cycle, it also made sense that my nervous system wasn't at its best in the cycle, which really helped me understand that, oh, this is not permanent. This is a temporary, and it's gonna all navigate. So that's kind of one kind of way. And we don't have to look at it as negative or positive. It can be, it's just like the way we express ourselves. And then from a stillness perspective, it would be shutting down, not communicating, confining yourself to a bed, like really, really closing in on yourself. So just notice, what I want you to do here is take an incident in your own personal life and just ask yourself, again, we're not going into the entire breakdown, as in, I don't want you to get into the whole emotional kind of upheaval of it, but just notice what you tend to do more. Are you someone that retracts more, or are you somebody that is more outwardly and more reactive, and you need external reaction? So just notice what that is for you. So just taking a deep breath and just notice what that is for you. Do you go inward or do you go outward? Is that your first response? And again, I obviously animated it. It doesn't have to be so animated. From there, I want you to take a moment to notice where in your body it comes from. When, like I said, if it's the jaw, if it's the eyes, if it's the hands, just notice what is the first thing to move. Even the shoulders. Some people move their shoulders first. Like when they're feeling in defense, they'll either lean back or lean forward, right? So just notice where in your body do you feel it. Something really great I heard in a talk by Peter Levine, they were talking about information and the concept of information. And he says information, right, even when we're talking about emotional information, you can break it up into, I think it's 2 words, right? Information. What happens is the second the mind processes a thought or a sensation, it begins to form, right? It gives the body an indication of how to move. So the second you hear something, for every action, there is a reaction. And without understanding how we navigate around information, it will be difficult for us to create a support system for ourselves. So your body literally moves, right, in formation. It goes into formation and molds itself and its frequency, the energy around the information that's coming through, right? So I've shared this before, that it's not, the thoughts give birth, right? The thoughts give birth to the emotion, right? It's always a conversation, but it's really knowing what those thoughts are when they show up, right? So we take information, it formulates into thoughts and emotion, and obviously it happens at such a fast rate, it just flows right through. So just by beginning to notice how your body moves with reaction will tell you a lot about how you handle different situations. And that's like really, really important to know. So we're going to take a second here, and we're going to build on this idea. And we're going to add more sensations to it, because the beauty is that we have all our senses. Words and thoughts are just one piece. Intellect is one piece. How it integrates is really key. And for so many of us, we weren't given any tools in how to plug all these pieces together or build these blocks. We've just been like given this world and been like, figure this part out, which is really difficult, because without being able to connect to knowing your response time, or really connect to yourself in that way where you're in complete flow and acceptance of the here and now, of being okay in this space, it's really, really hard to connect with the frequency of a spiritual practice on a deeper level. And if that is something that you are interested in doing, which, the soul and the spirit, it's so, if you want to go deeper, the only way to go deeper is to connect deeper with the energy frequency of the soul and spirit, which is, it's internal, and the only way you can get to it is if you're in that calm space. The more tightness that's there, or the more, if there's a chaos and movement, as in both, if we're at either side of that scale, it's going to be really difficult to connect. So let's take a moment here, and again, just find a safe experience. It could be even as simple as getting out of bed this morning. All right, so let's just use that, because I think that's a really good one. Think about the thought that you had, or the lack of thought that you had. What was that thing, besides for time, right? Because we all kind of are motivated by the clock. But besides for time, what's the thing that got you up or didn't get you up this morning? Okay? So think about the thing that made you sit up, had a physical reaction of you sitting up. We're going to try to get to that moment, okay? So take a moment here to just relax into the body, soften the shoulders, relax the head and the eyebrows. Inhale through the nose, and begin to go into the conversation you had right before you got out of bed. And think about sitting up in your bed. And think about, was your body more tense? Or was your body more relaxed? And we're going to go a little deeper now. How was your breath? How was your mouth? Did it feel more acidic? Did it feel dry? How was your body? Was your body warm? And for most of us, we don't remember a lot of these things, but go back and you'll be able to see that there's a lot of things that are memorable, right? That are clear, that bypass us and give us so much information, but we just kind of bypass it. So think about the temperature of your body. What was your temperature of your body? Were you under the covers, over the covers? Was there air blowing? Were you hot? Were you sweaty? Was your skin dry? Was your skin wet from sweat? Was your skin oily? Just notice. And if your body was warm or cool, notice where in the body that was. Notice the smell in the room. What was the smell when you got up? Notice, was it dark? Was it light? Was it naturally lit, as in was it sunlight or actual light? And just build on this experience, just sitting there for a moment. Building on that, we're going to add the ears. Was it loud or was it noisy? Was it a noise that got you up? Or was it very quiet? Here in New York, it rained this morning. So I got to hear the rain. It came down pretty hard. Where are you in your cycle, right? Where, or even age range, like in your age, where you are in life, like what are those indicators that affect you today that might have not been there yesterday? Did you need to use your hands for support to stand up? Just notice all these little things. And when you did stand up, how much of you actually got up this morning? In the sense of, did you feel completely whole, or do you feel more whole now? So that kind of gives you a little bit of an indication of how to break down something when you're trying to find out how you respond. Because that will also, like, for example, if your mouth was maybe really acidic or your stomach felt acidic, a cup of coffee might not have been the best choice first thing in the morning. It could be a warm cup of tea or lemon water might have been a better choice, right? Were you thirsty? Did you have a full bladder? Like all these things, we just kind of respond instead of noticing how our body responds to it. And this will help us a lot as we move through our day. So we're just kind of come back into the present moment. So just kind of merging into this space. So you can always take the time to do these assessments, and these assessments are are really, really healthy because it will tell you more about yourself than anyone can tell you. So the beauty of noticing the details of the response time is that when we are in a space where we're trying to create more support for ourselves or neutralize our nervous system, really calm it down, bring the cortisol down, and really come into a balanced center, by observing how we respond, we'll be able to observe what it is that we can do when we need the help. So when, like I was saying earlier, like the day that I was feeling a little bit more anxious, right? So taking that day and being able to be like, oh, I usually respond, right? X, Y, and Z. Taking those things, like knowing, for example, that when there's light in the room, it's harder for me to sleep, for example, right? Or if there's noise, right? If there was a lot of rain, it made me feel anxious, right? If it's coming down really, really hard, even if it's a few minutes, knowing that those are little things that create more tightness in the body. And again, I'm just giving you like a neutral, random example. For everybody, it's different. So it's like saying, when we have a situation, you can say what's working, and then you can ask yourself what isn't working, right? So then you would say to yourself, if you are tracking your response time or your actions when you respond, and all the sensations that show up with it, when you need to create the sense of calm, you can ask yourself, what is it that helps me relax more? And it could be back to a smell. Do I need to feel cooler, right? If I'm too hot, do I get uncomfortable? Just asking yourself those questions, and as you familiarize yourself with the response and how you respond, you will able to then create an environment that is supportive for yourself. And it's really helpful because sometimes when we're in a space where we're really experiencing challenge, sometimes it's not necessarily that there is a huge like a huge boulder in our way. It's these little teeny discomforts built up over time that we're unsure how to face. But once we're able to notice, right? If we notice, okay, I really close myself off when I'm upset, let's say, for example. Like, you know, I can even say for myself, like, as I was going through harder things in life, my response would be to just be quiet. And my friends knew that there would be silence for a while, for a couple days when I was going through something, because my thought process was, I don't want to burden anyone. It's not going to make a difference if anyone knows what I'm going through. I'm just going to handle it, and then I'll resurface when everything is fine. But really, that's kind of unhealthy, right? So being able to find a nice balance between the two, and having great friends, shouting out to my great friends, they reach out and they know, or I'm in a space now where I can communicate instead of just keeping it completely silent, being like, okay, I'm in a space where I naturally shut down, but that doesn't mean that I have to go there completely anymore, right? And then I'm able to come back to balance much quicker. And as we do this over and over again, our response begins to change. So even though life's challenges still keep showing up, the way we respond is different. So for some of us, when we have a challenge, the reaction can take us a month to rebound, and then, or a week. For some people, it's a day. For some people, it's an hour. But as we begin to pay attention to how we respond, and then what we can do to support our responses, to create healthier responses for ourselves, it becomes shorter and shorter. The time becomes shorter and shorter because we've built the muscle, and the self-care meets the past frozen self. It meets it halfway and kind of helps neutralize it. So I know that's a lot of information. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And if you like what you see, like, follow, share, and we'll see you next time.